trustees, when we felt like we needed to make the decision to do something to sort of meet the financial issues that we've got and have had for many years here at the NBC. It was the start of a process. It's the start of a process, and we're in that process now, and we're at the beginning of that process. And in some respects, you know, the information's not changed very much, but we have got more information than we had just a few weeks ago. It feels like a very ever-changing picture, you know, true to the Dharma. Things change very quickly, and really, I think, you know, sort of want you to sort of hear what Silabodhi and Lilasuri are saying with that spirit of like things are changing all the time. We're having conversations with many people, hearing lots of different sort of perspectives, and I know as trustees, you know, we're really trying to listen to all those different sort of perspectives. So I'll hand over to Silabodhi, who's going to give us a brief update.
Okay, thanks, Shankar. So I'm not actually going to, unlike last time when I gave a bit of a talk, I'm not really going to do that this time. I'm just going to make a few reflections, I suppose, and then give you a brief update of one particular aspect, which is finance. A bit dry, but there you go. And then I'll leave Lilasuri to, I don't know, tell you something more exciting, maybe not, or even less. I don't know. It depends how you look at it, doesn't it? So yeah, I mean, moving on, carrying on in a way from where Vishankar left off. So I do think the whole The Move thing is a real personal journey for all of us. It's certainly a personal journey for me. And I would be surprised if there was a single person in this room who hasn't slightly altered from one position to another, gone, oh no, or yes, oh there, oh why this, oh what that, and so on and so on. And the more you talk about it and the more you deal with it, the rational is easy, it's quick, isn't it? It's the subconscious and the feeling and everything that rumbles along slowly, but also changes. So certainly a personal journey for me. And we are receiving emails now with quite long feedback, lengthy ones, some of them, not many, a few. And I think we're talking about this, that we really acknowledge that some of the initial stages of this process have probably been done in the wrong order. You know, and it's funny because I actually imagined and predicted that that's what would happen. I didn't realize it would happen quite rapidly, perhaps, but I think we do acknowledge that amongst the trustees. Oh, no, perhaps we should have started with that. Anyway, it is what it is, and I think what we felt when we were meeting last, just this one, step back a bit and listen, engage more. We're always going to listen, engage. We had a plan to do that, but we think there are wider ways to do that and more in-depth ways to do it. And I'll come to the reason why we can do that at the end of this. And there's also been a feeling that possibly we need to engage we do need to engage with the order specifically as well. Not that they are different in that sense, it's just that the order have often had a very lengthy journey in relationship to this building. I mean, I personally have been here 19 years. Some, you know, there are people here been longer than that. There are people been in our community, in Bodywise, for example, who've been here working for 26 years, the whole time the building's been here. So in a way, they have a special connection as well. So, and perhaps some slight different angles, but the engagement will continue in several forms. We'll think of new ones. We'll react to, we'll respond to what people want. And yeah. So reactions and feedback are good. Now, when you get a difficult letter with lots of things like, oh, I don't think this, I do think that, and then you go, oh, and then, but actually they are good. They're really good. And one reason why that is, we were talking about this at the Wednesday night, is people are really waking up to what they value. They're waking, and it's good. That's good, isn't it? That is really good. If we just said, "Hey, let's have a meeting about what should we do in the future," probably hardly anyone would turn up. When you do something like this, not that said we came up with the idea of the move just to shock you, or that was not the case. What they really feel. And we're getting reactions from all ends. Some people are like, "Hey, great, new horizons, this is exciting." Other people saying, "No, I really love this building and I don't see why we should leave." Other people are saying, "I really love this building, but yeah, maybe we should leave," and so on. So we're getting everything. We're getting the whole gamut of feelings, and so it should be. So one thing we really want to do is facilitate reflective sessions in the future, sessions, I don't know how many were there, on what our deeply held values are. What are we actually doing? Why are we practicing the Dharma? How do we feel this will affect society? How might it affect society? What do we want to do? Do we even want to affect society? And what do we need to do that? Do we need a big building? Do we need this? Do we need that? But it's more about, it would be really good to get a chance to have some sessions looking at what our actually deeply held values are. There'll probably be a different set of values for every single member of the Sangha. And yet they're also shared as well. So that's just some reflections, really. So I did say I'd say something about, in a way, why the good thing is we've got time to do all this. So Buddha Samagama, our finance manager, and myself, we crunch, then we recrunch, then we recrunch, and we recrunch the numbers, and no doubt that will carry on to some degree, trying at this stage to look at what it would be like to stay here. Now, of course, we also need to do projecting numbers about how it would be if we moved to this type of venue or that type of venue. That's harder, of course, but we have already started actually that, but we're way off with that. So what we did, we tried to work out what it would be over the next 5 years if we stayed here, and we poured in every single known factor that we can think of, and then every reasonable assumption. And you have to make a lot of assumptions. I mean, what is interest? What is the inflation rate going to be? I don't think Rishi Sunak knows that, so I don't. But we can guess what's going to happen to the minimum wage, because after all, the staff are all paid on the minimum wage. So what's that going to do? Because that, it's a big percentage of cost, and so on and so forth. What things need maintenance, and so on and so forth. And I can't deny that we are making a thumping great loss this year of over nearly £27,000, and the projections show something in the region of 24 next year losses, and so that's a big loss. I'll come back to reserves and so on in a minute. What happens after that is, in the subsequent 3 years of the 5-year period, is things calm down. So assuming our assumptions are even roughly correct, rather than losing in the 20s, we start losing the 5s, the 6s, and the £8,000 a year, which isn't good because we're still losing money. But at least it's calmer. So why do I say we've got time? We've got quite a lot of time. Well, there was an upside to the horrible part of COVID, and many of you have heard me say this before. Because of furloughing, which had its own difficulties, I have to say, we received about £47,000. So from the now Prime Minister, in fact. And that was great because it gave us strength. It gave us protection. And I said at the time, we will lose money as a result of COVID. We will really lose money. But don't panic. This is what the money is for. This is it. We will slowly or rapidly, we will burn our way through quite a bit of this money. And so it is turning out to be. So I'm not panicking. But obviously we can't keep doing this. We can't keep doing this. So we've got good reserves. We've got the base reserves, which are the legal amount. So what does it say? It says we've got to do something, but we don't have to sort of run for the hills and close the door right now. That's for sure. Which is good. And it is good because we were Lilasuri and I met with some property people. In fact, there's a second lot of property people now, and we were just listening to them. You know, we're not committing to anything. We're just listening because we need to learn a lot about this building and its possible worth, a lot about other buildings, what's available, what's not, and so on and so forth. And one thing they said, which will be a surprise to probably no one, unless there's someone here who's never watches the news, now isn't a good time to sell anything. So although it's actually been quite a hot market, as they would say, actually it's also a chaotic market. So the latest guy said, oh, I wouldn't put it on the market. If you're going to put it on the market, don't do it for another 6 months. So it's fine. I'm not particularly surprised. So then finally to say, okay, so that's all about the current flow of income and expenditure, but over all of that comes what this building truly needs. There's nobody who doesn't know that this building needs a new roof. In fact, when I'm at the European Chairs Assembly, the Manchester roof is a long-running joke. It's like, oh, you fixed the roof yet? No. And so it goes, and so it goes. We need a new roof, probably. We need new windows. Last time we looked at it years ago, it was about £85,000. Trouble is, this is a conservation area, so you could, even if you wanted to, which by the way we don't, you couldn't change them for just standard double glazed windows. You'd have to change them for, well, whatever the appropriate windows, whatever they would be. Very, very expensive business, so almost definitely in excess of £100,000. The outside of the building is dilapidated. Surika and I were looking out the window only yesterday, the day before, and seeing all the dilapidation when we looked out of our office, actually, on the top floor. We could see there's loads of woodwork, actual brickwork that is damaged. A lot of it needs repointing and repairing. It's not all like that. And of course, you would do these things if you spent 50,000 plus on scaffolding to do the roof. Then you'd do these other things because it would be a waste of money otherwise. And then finally, I mean, there are probably many more things, but finally, well, here's another one. The lift is old and cranky, and one of these days will really explode. It nearly exploded last year, and we managed to get insurance for it. I'm not quite sure why, but they thought it was I don't know. Anyway, they felt it was an insurable item, so that saved us. But it's probably got a limited life. And then finally, there's this matter of disabled access, which is important to us. We do have quite a few people with less physical ability, less ease of movement, and who would really like to come here. And like many centres in the movement, they're all trying to make it accessible for people so that they can get into their building. We can't. I think we've got 5 extremely steep steps. But unfortunately, and I know I've said this before, you have to convert all the fire regulations for the entire building, every single floor, even if they were only to come onto one floor. We've checked all this out. A building is either accessible or it's not, as far as the fire. So I'd be very surprised. Surika and I haven't talked about this. This shopping bill doesn't come to anything less than £800,000, possibly towards £1 million. I know Priyavarta thinks it's towards £1 million. So then you're left with this problem. A, how would you raise £1 million? B, obviously you can't raise it with debt because how are you going to pay for that? And C, should you spend £1 million on this building, or should you use it for lots of other exciting Sangha projects? So these things are all up in the air. They're really difficult, aren't they? They're really difficult. So that's just bringing you up to date really with what we've found. But the good news, the final thing is, we do not need to rush. So we've got lots of time to think and talk about this and consult, engage with the Sangha. Okay, I shall hand over to Lilasuri, who is our project manager.
That seems very close. Is that okay? Thank you. I don't like touching these things once they're set up. I feel like I should actually leave things alone. Oh, there we go. Okay. Oh, it's nice everybody. Everybody on Zoom. Hello. Oh. Yeah. Wow. So yeah, I had quite an interesting walk from the train station to here because yeah, I've been feeling quite, I don't know, kind of quite emotional and quite overwhelmed really by this process. And I was trying to just, what that is. And what I was thinking is that if I was doing project management for a business or, a very different organization, it would be quite straightforward. It'd be very operational. There'd be strict deadlines, and there'd be timescales, and there's things that couldn't happen. So, but this isn't like that at all, because what's involved in this is the heart, actually, and the Sangha. I'm part of the Sangha, and the Sangha is something I love really dearly. So this feels like. It feels like a heart project, so that might sound corny, but it really does feel like that. So I just wanted to say that as well. I think there could be something about the term project manager that just feels a bit cold and technical and quite so I just wanted to, I just felt like I really wanted to say that isn't what I'm bringing if in case you thought otherwise. But I am going to do it. So just really is to have an overview of what's happening. So for me to have an overview of what's happening, I'm working very closely with the rest of the trustees and the Heart Cooler, working with the tenants and the community. Days like this together and all the different gatherings that we're going to have with the Sangha. But ultimately, that is my role, to have an overview and bring the bits and pieces together. So where the operational kind of aspect comes in is a project plan. But I've got notes written all over because things have changed again. And that's the nature of a project plan. It never kind of just stays still, if you like. Quite obviously, the purpose of a project plan really is this gathering data. So that's a lot of what I've been doing for the past few weeks. The plan is just really a starting point. It's just gathering all the bits of information that's been discussed and shared already and put them down on a bit of paper. So we've got something to work from. And with that, with the project plan, it's like, well, actually, what is this project viable? And there's different measures that you can come in to look at that, the viability. So just back up, basically. And then the project plan itself and the process as well. So how we're going to get from what we aim to do to the end result. But what we've already, shared this evening already is that this is really evolving. It's changing all the time. Information comes in. Things will change. We've had some emails sharing off people raising some really good points. Actually, we think, yeah, that's fantastic. We should bring that. We've had new information about the great. We've got more breathing space. We can lean back a bit more. So that's new. To people's ideas and views as well. Obviously, that takes time. So in a way, when I started doing this project, I had a sense of urgency, and actually used to being at all when you have this sense of urgency. But now it feels like, oh, okay, just breathe and lean back into this a bit more, which feels so much better. So what else to share? I suppose really, yeah, just to say, I suppose the elements around the project plan is looking at the aim. What is it we're aiming to do? But it isn't a cold aim around, we want to build a building, we want to move somewhere else, you know? There is the heart involved in that. So the very much talking about the process. So there's things like having, you know, love, care, inclusivity, and sensitivity, which is very much upheld within the process. So it's not just a sterile kind of aim, there is heart in there. Looking at the business case, what is a business case for moving? Again, all the financials are kind of coming together around that. And the business case for moving to somewhere else, where would that be? What would that look like? So that would be incorporated. The different phases of the project as well. So when we first started, it seemed quite clear there would be, you know, particular phases. So on the back of those phases, I create some objectives, some timescales, and some outputs. So the outputs being very tangible things that needs to happen to move something along. But all those phases have changed as well within the past week, you know. So again, there's a lot of things evolving. And then putting actually down on paper, well, who's involved? Who are the key people? What are their roles and responsibilities as well? And being really clear about that. So stakeholders, you could call them. So internal stakeholders and external people as well. So in terms of specialist advisors, Manchester City Council, people like that. And then coming down to the nitty gritty of resources. So around people, money, materials, and time. So trying to understand what is it we have already that can really help us to galvanize and make this project a success. And a risk assessment, with the most exciting thing to the end, a risk assessment. So actually, you know, obviously just thinking of all the variables we really need to think about. Oh, and the added thing, a communications plan as well. So yeah, so that's what I've been working on basically. So there is, you know, there is a very definite process in terms of actually trying to put things down on paper. And it is evolving. So it sometimes feels a bit difficult to just sit here and not be able to share anything particularly concrete. But I guess we're still really at the start. So we're at the very, very beginning. And actually what's happening now is we've been able to gather lots of this information right now at this starting point. So we are still in the development phase, I guess. I think that's it really from me for sharing at the moment.